And welcome back. This is your man Warrior, and I'm going to do a video on ships, specifically on kind of how to build a balanced team, who to farm, that kind of thing. Pretty briefly, I want to go more in depth on another video specifically about the 3 different kinds of ships, but I just hope that this brings a new level of understanding for ships. I know there's a number of people watching who have kind of given up on ships, and they say, "Oh, I'm just going to do whatever. I don't really care. I'm just, if I'm 200, whatever. If I'm 500, whatever, I don't care." And I get it, because it's really, really hard. There's a bunch of people that spent some money and they skyrocketed up. For the free-to-play player, it's a little bit more difficult. The worst part about being free-to-play, on my free-to-play account, and by the way, this is my pay-to-play account, but if you go to free-to-play, they created the fleet shipments, right? And so this was the biggest blessing and the biggest curse in the entire game, because what it did was it basically took every pay-to-play character like Sunfac or Darth Maul, Biston, who you can't get anywhere else, Sunfac, any of these characters that you really wanted, but now you have to either farm them or farm the ships. And so a lot of people are kind of like, screw ships, they're only a component. I really want the characters. They're going to help me in the long run. And I get that. And so we'll kind of go through that a little bit here. But I wanted to definitely help people with how to build their teams, their team compositions, and kind of, why you would go a certain way or another. As far as my tip of the day, it actually comes right out of the fleet shipments. My suggestion is what I do. And so when I get my payout here shortly, I will be buying Biston shards. I've been farming him, trying to get him. I'm, of course, going to try and get him to 7-star. It's going to take a while, because I only get about 5 shards a day, but I do buy at least once out of here. And then I come up here and I go first order TIE pilot, or first order TIE fighter. I'm trying to get his ship to 7-star. And then I am also trying to do Rex, and I'm trying to get him right now to 6. And then I have another 2 ships that I like to farm. And so I have 4 ships and 1 character, but I rotate between the ships because they drop different days. Different ships drop on different days. And so what I try to do is I try to farm 1 character that I really like, that I really need out of here. So if that's Sunfac for you, or maybe that's Commander Cody for you, or maybe it's Darth Maul, you like his ship for stealth purposes, you could farm Darth Maul out of here and Darth Maul's ship out of here when it drops. So I would just suggest do 1 character, and then the rest of your coins, the rest of your tokens, they call them Fleet Arena tokens, do them on the ships. You want to continue to embrace the ships thing, because it's not going away. And I know a lot of people who are going to be very sad at themselves if all they do is farm characters only and they give completely up on ships, because eventually down the road there's going to be team-wide events or aka raids, where you're going to come in here and there's going to be a 3rd raid to the right, which is going to involve ships, and you're going to wish you had developed your ships. So my tip of the day is, it's a mixed blessing or curse on ships for the fleet shipments, because it's a battle. What do we get? What do we not get? But just focus on 1 character. Try and farm up 1 character and use the other shards. Now, if you've got 2 characters you really want and you're only wanting 1 ship, then maybe balance it the other way. But make sure you're splitting or dividing up your shipment tokens between the most important character or characters and shipper ships. The other thing is just side note, my last video, crazy. Half the people are iOS and are really hurt about not getting the character. And then the other half are Google, and they're like, haha, we got it. I empathize completely with the iOS people, and what I was trying to say in that last video is that Apple has the same opportunity to give you guys, the iOS guys, a character, and they have yet to pull the trigger. They may, but they have yet to do it. And so I'm a little bit on the side of kind of shame on the Apple for not being so giving enough to be willing to spend the same kind of money and compete with Google on that. I do know a lot of people put the blame on Capital Games or EA for accepting advertising dollars from one side that only helps half of their clientele base, but this isn't anything that's new. They've done this in the past that was in iOS's favor, such as the event like the Ewok event, where iOS got to do it and Android did not. So it happens. I don't personally like it, but I don't place any blame on Capital Games or EA. They're a game manufacturer. They're trying to make money, and that is a way to make ad revenue. And they could have gotten it from Apple. They just have yet to. And by the time these videos settle and simmer, there'll probably be a special character release on iOS that's even better than Android, and then Android will be flipping their lid. But one thing that we can agree on, and I hope the Capital Games and EA are listening to me right now on the sound of my voice, is please, 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 for the love of God, please open up cross-platform compatibility. I went out on Black Friday and I bought myself my brand new iPad Mini 2 so I could start streaming in a different way through an Elgato on my computer. I think that would be super fun. And unfortunately, I cannot put my information from my Android onto my iOS device, so I ended up returning the Apple product. And that really bummed me out because there are many games that have that capability. So if you're listening, cross-platform compatibility, it is super, super, super important to everybody. And I think everyone, iOS and Apple and Google, Android can agree, right? That's the one thing we all want is cross-platform compatibility. It is the hatred that binds. It is the hatred that binds. No. Anyway, I've been doing too much of the rant, so I want to go into this ships video and just really explain how to build your ships team. Okay, so the first thing is you got basically two ways that you can build a team. First is synergy. The second is a balanced approach. You always want synergy in your teams, but the balanced approach is a little easier to do. And what I mean by that is when you go into your ships, you can do a synergistic team. Now, ships, there are only, if you take away the leaders, there are only 20 ships, okay? And so you're not going to be able to have much synergy. So if you go to Empire, there's not much Empire synergy there. I mean, I don't have Darth Vader's ship, and so I've got one friggin' ship that I could use with the Empire as far as the synergy there goes. So that's kind of out. Even if you were to go with something, really cool like the Rebels, everybody has Biggs and Wedge now, right? Unless you've been living under a rock, you probably have the Biggs and Wedge combo, or you're working on it. And everybody should have some of Biston and some of the Scarif Rebel Pathfinder. They gave those shards away to everybody. And of course, Admiral Akbar was an easy farm. A lot of people did him as a rebel. So a lot of people have this synergy here, but still synergy, you're talking about a few ships, right? There's, 4 ships max if you include the leader. And we know you can have 7 or 8 ships in your fleet when you attack. So this doesn't help a whole lot having that, AKA that synergy specific to Rebels or Empire. I will say the only team that really has much synergy at all is Republic. Now the Republic has their leader, and they have 7 out of the 8 slots on your team can be Republic. And so this is the one with the most synergy. This is why Endurance is such an awesome ship, because it has the most. Now the downside with Republic is there is only 1 attacker, there's 2 support, and there's 3 tanks. And that leads me into the next part, which is if you're going to do a balanced team. So a balanced team is going to consist of some tanks, some support, and some attackers, because those are the only 3 that you can get. Okay, everything else is a type for the synergy, like Resistance or Scoundrel. But there are tanks. There are 5 tanks in the game. And of the tanks, of course, if I had my choice, I would tell you that obviously the top, all 5 of them are great. They all have their strengths. But obviously, I personally lean towards Biggs. And the reason for Biggs is because, as a tank, is because I'm using Admiral Akbar's ship. But Sunfax is great, as well as Rex's. The Starfighter, 5's a Starfighter, is a mixed blessing. If you can get Darth Vader on your side and really start target locking individuals, this Starfighter could really shine. But as of now, he's really the guy I leave till the end of the battle. So you're going to want to have a few tanks, right? There's 5 tanks in the game. My suggestion is to have 2 or 3 of these tanks. So go into here, click on tank, and look at these 5 tanks and see who do you have and who do you not have. Now, if you do not have at least 2 of these ships and 2 of these pilots, then I would get on farming right away in the game, because it is important you have at least 2 of these tanks. Me personally, I use 3 tanks, and there is a reason for that. I'll go over that more when I get to my spot. Now, the other type, there's tanks, then there's also support and attackers. So let's go to support. There are the same 5 number of supports, so there's 5 tanks, 5 support. Now, the support are all pretty cool. Resistance, in theory, is pretty nice. The X-Wing, Bisted's U-Wing in the game is pretty decent. Jedi Consular's ship is actually pretty OP. He's pretty awesome. He's constantly giving protection up for people, and he's getting a double attack. I really like that. Plo's ship is not bad at all. These supports, they did a good job of building value into each one of these ships. My favorite, unfortunately, is one of the rarest, which is the Scimitar for my Darth Maul. And I really, really, really wish that my Scimitar was stronger. It's only at 14,000 power. It's really hard to compete at that. You can see I'm farming it, almost have him up to 5-star, but that's my particular support. Now, I recommend you have 1 or 2 of these ships in your fleet. So if you're going with a balanced style, I would recommend 2 or 3 tanks and then 1 or 2 of these support. I personally use the Scimitar, but many of you, if you're free to play, should be using the Jedi JC's ship because it's an excellent ship. And you probably all have JC. I mean, everybody gets him at the beginning of the game, and so he's also one of the easiest characters to gear, and that's important as well. So that's the ship that I would recommend for support. And then if you have any of these other characters, then you could utilize these ships. So now that you got 2 or 3 tanks, you got 1 or 2 support, you go to attackers. And attackers are really the most important. Now, there are quite a few. There are 10 attackers total in the game. So half are tanks or supports. The other half are attackers. With that, your balance of your team should be essentially 4 attackers, 3 to 5 attackers, depending upon how heavy you want to go with tanks and supports. But I recommend if you can have 8 slots for 8 ships, that you do 4 of those slots as attackers. Now, with the attackers, obviously there's a couple I don't have unlocked yet, but you could pick your attackers that have synergy with the leader that you pick. So if you're going with endurance, of course, you could pick a couple of the Republic. Republic only has Ahsoka's ship. And there's another tip, by the way, if you do not have Ahsoka's ship or her, they're both easily farmable. The Galactic War tokens can actually get her ship pretty quick, and she's very farmable as well. And she's a phenomenal character in the game, but there are a number of attackers I recommend having 3 to 5 at a balance. I'd say about 4. So for me personally, I have 3 tanks, 1 support, and 4 attackers. That makes me a little strong on attacks, but still tanky enough to survive, and that's what I would recommend. Now, the other aspect of this is how are you going to, when you have your team, how are you going to, this guy to the far right who's in the second slot, it's 158,000 arena power, I'm at 149, and then the other 2 are at around 144,000 arena power. But you can see the first 6 ships. You can see the first 5 plus the first 1 in backup. And so Skywalker 5 has Darth Vader in his backup, but he's got it in the first slot. Now, I already know he has the ship, but he could hide that from us by putting it in the, and let me show you what I mean, putting it in the second or the third slots. So those 2 slots, I get to see the top 5 and I get to see that far left. So he could put, whatever ship, his Darth Vader in that second or that third slot right there and there, and then I wouldn't see it, and then I wouldn't know that he has it. Now, why this is important, it is sometimes fun to be able to hide certain ships so they don't know what you're bringing into the battle, so you can surprise them. I like to have 1 attacker and 1 tank in my reinforcements hidden, so that way they do not know what I have. But I like a balance on the field at first. So if you look at this field, I've got my support, my only support, which is the Scimitar. I have Biggs and Wedge, who are the only 2 rebels really in the game other than the U-Wing, which I don't have very high. The U-Wing's way down there. And so I'm using Admiral Akbar, and so Biggs and Wedge are great. There's 1 heavy attacker, Wedge. He hits like a tank. He's amazing. And then Biggs, who's going to defend really good as a tank. The same thing is true. I have the First Order TIE pilot, the TIE fighter, and I have Rex as a tank as well. So I've got 2 tanks, 2 attackers, a support, and then in the wings I have another 2 attackers and another tank that I can bring in. And I'm hiding Poe for a reason, because they know I have Poe, but Poe and Sunfac. And you get to bring your reinforcements in whenever you choose. So whenever you decide to bring in Poe, you get to bring him in as a reinforcement. You get to choose. But I like to hide them, especially when they're fighting me. It does change the style on how they're attacking my team. So I think that that does help. So you want to make sure that you put in the very best team that you have. And we're going to go ahead and do a battle so you can kind of see a little bit of fun, a little bit of strategy that goes into this. But a balanced team is really the most important way to build the team. Synergy right now is hard to do unless you have the Endurance ship and unless you have all the Republic ships and all the characters for all the Republic ships. You're really stuck with trying to figure this out. Now, it looks like he has this TIE Advanced Fighter and the Scimitar. Those are both pretty big deals. And he also has Geonosian Soldier who hits hard, and Biggs the tank. So I want to try and take out the Scimitar or the TIE Advanced right away. Here we go. My heavy hitter did not crit. That's too bad. I got to do this before he gets his taunt off. There we go. Good. Did you see how hard Wedge hits for? So that's important that you have that. Now we're going to move to the Scimitar. 41,000. And we'll do damage to everybody. The AoE leaves something to be desired, but it does do some damage. Let's hope before his taunt gets off we can finish this. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and give protection to him to try to... That is why I like him. And now I'm going to give Biggs counter chance. Or that might be... Yeah, that's Biggs. And he's doing the same basic thing. Hopefully I'll get a double attack. There we go, double attack. Not sure why I'm not critting. There we go. There was the assist. Little damage over time. Double shot. Oh, don't need to. And then we'll move to their Scimitar. And that's all she wrote. Now you notice I'm leaving the Starfighter all by himself. Now I want to go to Geonosian, but I can't. The soldier, but I can't. He calls and assists and attacks out of turn a lot. But let's see. Let's debuff my ally. And if you notice, having a couple tanks, a couple attackers, and a support really makes for a strong team. This team composition, it really doesn't matter who you have. Obviously, if I'm using Home 1 as my ship, using Biggs and Wedge are a no-brainer. But there isn't as much synergy as you'd like to think there is. And this is the Spy. Let's go ahead and try and take him out. Boom, 51k. Another one bites the dust. And another one. Yep, all right. Still have not lost a ship yet. The other thing is you got to decide on, when you do balance, is the speed of the ships is to how many ships. So I have half my ships are on the highest end of fast, and the other half of the ships are on the slow end. And so I like to balance, like the Scimitar is super slow. So I balance that with my, first order. Let's do strafe. Whap, 48k. Dang, I love that. Boom. No crit. But so you want to make sure you're balancing the speed aspect in the game. And he didn't bring any more reinforcements in time, so that is all she wrote. And there you go. There you have it. That was a pretty fun battle. So make sure that you're balancing your teams, that you, between the three, the tanks, the supports, and the attackers, you've got a good, solid balance. Make sure you hide a couple good guys in the wings. You don't want to put your best out and then have them die before you can call in reinforcements, but you want to make sure that when the reinforcements come in, that they actually aren't your weakest ships either. So you want to make sure that you've got a very balanced team. If you have a couple of weak characters that you have to play with because you're free to play, then put them in a couple of, like if you have 2 weak ships, put one in your main team and one in your backup, so that way you're balancing who's getting called in and who's up front now. So anyway, pretty sure, yep, I got my number 1, so I'm going to go shop with it. So we go to ships, fleet shipments, and I come down here and I get my Biston, my first order TIE fighter, and then my Rex, and I leave myself a few coins. You guys may not have that capability, but if you have enough to leave yourself at least 400, that gives you the freedom that when this refreshes in an hour and 56 minutes or tomorrow morning or whatnot, if there's something that drops in here that I really, really want, such as the scimitar, I still have some coins for the scimitar. So that's what I have for the ships. I will be doing a future video on each of the different styles of ships. So if you want to know more about these tanks specifically and what my thoughts are on the tanks, which is the best tank, or if you want to know about the support, which supports are best to farm, I will be going over all of those. I'll also go over the attackers and let you know what I feel like on all the attackers. I won't be able to do much on the Millennium Falcon or TIE Advanced. I tell you, both of them are great ships. But I will be doing videos on each of these 3 styles of ships that you can play with. Just keep in mind, balance your team. Make sure you guys have fun above all else. Keep your gaming on. Warrior out.